Have you noticed how, in recent years, events of mass destruction, fires, earthquakes, and drastic climate changes have become almost commonplace? Each year, the wildfires in Los Angeles and other parts of the world seem more intense, more voracious, and harder to control. But what if these events were not merely reflections of human neglect, but signs of something much greater, something that surpasses scientific understanding? Among ancient prophecies and secrets guarded by the Vatican, there is a disturbing mystery that connects these disasters to an entity known as Abaddon, the angel of the abyss. But what is truly behind these catastrophic events? Are we merely destroying our world through negligence, or is something awakening in the depths of the earth that defies reality as we know it? Since ancient times, the idea of an abyss guarding destructive forces has accompanied humanity. In Revelation, chapter 9, there is an enigmatic description of Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, who commands legions of destructive beings. But what does this figure truly mean, and how does it connect to current events? To understand, we must return to the beginning of the prophecies and the forgotten texts that sought to warn generations about the danger lurking in the depths of the earth. The figure of Abaddon is not exclusive to Christianity. In Judaism, he is mentioned as a place of destruction, a kind of subterranean domain destined for lost souls. In Islam, similar references appear in esoteric texts that speak of forces imprisoned beneath creation. And in the Book of Enoch, an apocryphal text rejected by the Church, there are disturbing passages about fallen angels trapped in underground chambers, awaiting the moment of their release. Could Abaddon be the leader of these imprisoned beings? Among these traditions, what stands out is the idea of a spiritual seal, a divine mechanism that keeps these forces contained. The Prophetia Tenebris, a medieval manuscript mentioned by scholars of theology and occultism, details a primordial seal that was placed over the abyss after the celestial rebellion, as described in the book of Revelation. This seal, according to the prophecy, would gradually weaken over the centuries, and its signs would be clear: natural disasters, intensified human conflicts, and a widespread loss of control over the forces of nature. Have you ever stopped to think about why so many of these signs seem to be present in our modern reality? Catastrophic fires, like those occurring in Los Angeles, are just one example. What if these events are more than environmental tragedies? What if they are signaling that something is moving in the depths of the earth? The Vatican, over the centuries, has demonstrated a peculiar interest in these prophecies. Since the Middle Ages, its archives have guarded texts considered too dangerous to be disclosed. It is said that during the Inquisition, monks translated and concealed manuscripts that spoke of imprisoned entities. The big question is, why would the Church be so concerned with keeping these texts out of public reach? Historical records show that certain natural events, such as the Lisbon earthquakes of 1755 and the devastating volcanic eruptions of the modern age, were interpreted by religious leaders as signs of the abyss. Quietly, the Vatican is said to have monitored these phenomena, attempting to understand if the seal mentioned in the prophecies was weakening. But how could something so ethereal be monitored? The answer may lie in the Church's technological advancements. Few know that the Vatican maintains one of the most advanced astronomical observatories in the world, which is often associated with the monitoring of celestial signs. The connection between the heavens and the earth, frequently mentioned in ancient texts, suggests that cosmic events, such as eclipses and planetary alignments, could be indicators of changes in the planet's spiritual balance. But what about the signs here on Earth? The wildfires ravaging Los Angeles, destroying everything in their path, are described in ancient prophecies as a reflection of spiritual instability. Apocryphal texts mention that fire is one of the first manifestations of the imbalance between the physical and spiritual worlds. The most interesting part? In some ancestral cultures, the areas affected by these disasters often coincided with sites of energy, known as spiritual portals. From this perspective, the fires could be much more than an environmental tragedy. Could these events be a warning that the spiritual seal keeping Abaddon imprisoned is weakening? Or is humanity, by destroying the planet, inadvertently accelerating the release of this entity? Another intriguing point is that, according to the Prophetia Tenebris, the signs would also come from underground. Mysterious noises and unexplainable tremors would be evidence that something is waking up. In recent years, witnesses around the world have reported strange subterranean sounds, often described as trumpets. Is this a coincidence, Or are we truly witnessing the beginning of something greater? It is important to remember that these prophecies are not solely about destruction. They also offer a warning. If the signs are understood and the right actions are taken, perhaps we can avoid the full awakening of Abaddon. However, this would require a global effort uniting spirituality, science, and humanity. But are we truly prepared for this? Finally, it is worth reflecting. If the Vatican believes in the truth of these prophecies, why does it remain silent? Is the Church trying to avoid chaos or simply awaiting the inevitable? While we search for these answers, the signs continue to manifest around us, demanding our attention. For centuries, the Vatican has positioned itself as the guardian of humanity's spirituality. But few know that, in its most secret actions, the Church also assumes an active role in preserving the Earth's spiritual balance. Its apostolic archives, guarded with extreme discretion, are only part of the story. The other part lies in its direct actions, rituals, investigations, and even alleged agreements between religious leaders and scientists to monitor the invisible forces that shape our world. Although access to the Vatican's archives is limited, there are historical records of Church interventions in events considered out of the ordinary. A notable example occurred during the Black Plague in the 14th century, when Vatican emissaries were sent to the most affected regions. Officially, their role was to strengthen the faith of the faithful and address the spiritual concerns of the time. However, ancient accounts suggest that these emissaries also performed specific rituals to purify the earth. Could these rituals have been attempts to contain spiritual forces unleashed by the chaos of the era? Moreover, the Church has also shown a peculiar interest in mapping the planet. Since the Middle Ages, monks and scholars associated with the Vatican worked on creating spiritual maps, known as esoteric cartographies. These maps identified locations considered sacred or dangerous, where the connection between the physical and the spiritual was most fragile. Interestingly, many of these locations coincide with areas that today face intense natural disasters, such as Los Angeles and the Amazon region. These spiritual maps not only guided the construction of churches and cathedrals, but also determined where protective rituals should be performed. Accounts from 18th century exorcist priests mention the use of sacred objects, specific prayers, and even symbolic sacrifices to reinforce the seal in places where spiritual energy was destabilized. Are such rituals still practiced today, in secret? The Vatican's role in containing spiritual forces is also reflected in its relationship with science. Few are aware that, in addition to the famous Lucifer telescope, the Vatican also maintains laboratories dedicated to studying natural and spiritual phenomena. According to independent sources, sensors have been installed in strategic locations to monitor seismic and magnetic changes. These sensors could be tools to identify points where the spiritual seal is weakening. Another intriguing detail is the apparent connection between natural disasters and human actions. Pollution, resource exploitation, and deforestation not only affect the physical environment but also the spiritual. In medieval esoteric texts, there is a clear connection between the destruction of natural balance and the awakening of imprisoned forces. Could humanity, unknowingly, be accelerating the return of Abaddon by creating ruptures in the Earth's spiritual barrier? The wildfires in Los Angeles, for example, are just one piece of this puzzle. In ancient spiritual maps, the California region is described as a line of fire, a point where the Earth's destructive element is most active. Could these wildfires be a reflection of something greater, something that is trying to break free? And, more importantly, are the Vatican's efforts to contain these forces proving effective? The Church also faces internal challenges. Since the 20th century, divisions have arisen within the clergy about how to deal with these hidden secrets. Some leaders believe humanity should be warned, while others advocate for silence to avoid panic. This dispute has intensified in recent years, especially with the increase in events considered signs of the end. Finally, there is the mystery of the lost documents. During the Crusades, records mention the Templars capturing ancient texts, some of which allegedly contained information about the Abyss and Abaddon. Many of these texts were taken to the Vatican but were never seen again. Were they destroyed, or are they still hidden, awaiting the right moment to be revealed? Meanwhile, the signs persist. The connection between science, spirituality, and natural disasters raises urgent questions. Are we witnessing the collapse of the spiritual seal that keeps destructive forces imprisoned? Or is it all merely coincidence? The universe is in constant motion, and the Earth, as part of this grand system, reflects this dynamism. But when seemingly natural events begin to align in chaotic and disordered ways, we are compelled to question: are we witnessing mere climatic and geological consequences, or is something far greater at play? For the ancients, everything in the cosmos, from the positions of the stars to volcanic eruptions, was interconnected, and such manifestations were seen as messages or spiritual warnings. But have we lost the ability to interpret these signs? In recent years, the increasing intensity of geomagnetic storms has caught the attention of scientists. These storms, caused by solar explosions, have the power to destabilize Earth's magnetosphere, resulting in phenomena like blackouts, navigation system failures, and auroras appearing in unexpected locations, such as southern Europe and even North America. While these are explained as physical phenomena, ancient cultures viewed these events as direct signs of a disturbance in the heavens. Could these storms be revealing more than just movements of the sun? At the same time, the Earth also seems more restless than ever. Recently, scientists reported anomalies in the planet's core. Researchers have identified unexpected changes in the flow of iron and nickel that make up the inner core, and theories suggest we are witnessing a gradual reversal of Earth's magnetic field. But why does this matter? The magnetic field not only protects the planet from solar radiation, but has also been associated with a broader spiritual balance. Ancient accounts describe magnetic reversals as moments of chaos, periods when the barriers between the physical and spiritual worlds are weaker. Additionally, the auroras, typically confined to polar regions, have been observed at lower latitudes, something that ancestral cultures would interpret as a rupture in the planet's spiritual layers. The Norse, for example, believed auroras represented battles between supernatural forces, while indigenous tribes associated them with warning messages from spirits. Could these phenomena, then, be warnings that something is about to happen? Another point of concern is the psychological impact of these signs. Psychologists and sociologists report a global increase in cases of anxiety, depression, and collective aggression. For esoteric traditions, this would not be mere coincidence. It is believed that energetic changes on the planet directly affect humans, leading to emotional and behavioral imbalances. Could this rise in global tensions be a reflection of a larger spiritual imbalance? Beyond the physical manifestations, we must also observe the signs coming from the cosmos on a grander scale. Recently, scientists have warned of the approach of asteroids and comets that could, hypothetically, enter a collision course with Earth. While the chances of impact are minimal, it is curious to recall that, in many traditions, the fall of celestial bodies was seen as a harbinger of spiritual transformation. In Revelation, for example, stars falling from the sky are directly associated with the opening of the abyss. Ancient peoples had a profound understanding of how the heavens and earth were interconnected. Many cultures created spiritual maps linking constellations to terrestrial events. Civilizations such as the Mayans, Egyptians, and Babylonians believed that planetary alignments could directly influence the planet's energy. Today, although many of these practices are considered superstition, it is difficult to ignore how cosmic and terrestrial events often seem to occur in synchronicity. But is all of this truly coincidence? Or are we simply denying the evidence because we have become disconnected from ancestral wisdom? Even in modern history, signs have always preceded moments of great destruction. Before the Black Plague, for instance, records describe red moons and unusual climatic phenomena. Before the Lisbon earthquake of 1755, accounts mentioned mysterious lights in the sky. And more recently, scientists have identified changes in the behavior of birds and other animals prior to earthquakes and tsunamis. If nature has ways of warning us, why does humanity persist in ignoring these signs? The truth is that the signs are there, but our inability to interpret them could come at a high cost. If the ancients were right, and these phenomena are manifestations of a greater spiritual imbalance, do we still have time to act? Or have we already passed the point of no return? For thousands of years, the spiritual traditions of different cultures have agreed on one point. Humanity has a direct influence on the planet's balance, not only on a physical level, but on a much subtler, spiritual level. Every thought, emotion, and action we undertake contributes to the collective energy that permeates the world. But what happens when this collective energy becomes unbalanced? Is the global chaos we are experiencing merely the result of isolated actions, or could it be the sum of our negative intentions? The idea of a collective energy is not new. Many ancient traditions, such as the shamans of Siberia and the sages of the East, spoke of what we might call the planetary energy field. This field was believed to be shaped by the vibrations emanating from all living beings. When humanity lives in harmony, this field is stable, functioning as a barrier that maintains the balance between the physical and spiritual planes. However, when emotions like hatred, greed, and fear dominate, this barrier begins to weaken. In recent centuries, humanity has not only drifted away from nature but also from spirituality itself. Modern civilizations, guided by materialism and technology, have ignored ancient warnings about the impact our actions could have on the planet's energy. The result is visible: climate crises, social conflicts, and an epidemic of anxiety and depression affecting millions. To some esoteric traditions, this is no coincidence. These problems are seen as direct manifestations of an energy field overloaded with negative energy. But how is this linked to ancient prophecies? Many of these prophecies, including the Prophetia Tenebris, describe a time when humanity would become the greatest agent of its own destruction. Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, would not merely be an external figure but also a consequence of human actions. He would be unleashed when the imbalance caused by humanity reached a critical point. In this sense, the release of Abaddon would be both a punishment and a reflection of our disconnection from the sacred. This imbalance exists not only in the physical world but also within each individual. The global rise in mental health disorders, aggression, and social crises can be seen as a reflection of the spiritual chaos that has settled within humanity. Modern science, particularly quantum physics, suggests that everything is interconnected on an energetic level. Our emotions and intentions can literally shape the reality around us. Are we, by losing ourselves in our own inner conflicts, contributing to the collapse of the planet's balance? Another layer of this issue lies in the unchecked advancement of science and technology. While humanity has achieved great feats, we have also crossed boundaries that, in ancient times, would have been considered sacred. Genetic manipulation, for example, is seen by many spiritual traditions as an act of disrespect toward divine order. Artificial intelligence, another significant advancement, is also surrounded by spiritual concerns, often viewed as an attempt to play God. Could we, through our innovations, be accelerating the collapse of Earth's spiritual field? Interestingly, several ancient cultures warned of the dangers of surpassing natural limits. The Mayans, for instance, believed that a cycle of destruction would begin whenever humanity disrupted the balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. For the Aboriginal Australians, this was represented by the figure of a sleeping serpent that would awaken if the earth were disturbed. These symbolic figures bear an eerie resemblance to what the Prophetia Tenebris describes as the awakening of imprisoned forces. However, humanity's impact on spiritual balance is not limited to physical actions. Our thoughts and emotions also play a crucial role. Emotions such as fear, hatred, and despair generate vibrational frequencies that can pollute the planet's energy field. This concept is reinforced by ancient spiritual practices, such as collective meditation, which aim to generate waves of positive energy to restore balance. Have we, by prioritizing materialism and individualism, lost the ability to generate these restorative energies? The disconnection from the sacred also contributes to the imbalance. In past eras, people lived in sync with Earth's cycles, celebrating seasonal changes and recognizing the interdependence of all living beings. Today, these rituals have been replaced by a frenetic urban life where consumption and productivity hold more value than introspection and spiritual connection. This detachment may be the reason humanity seems unable to interpret the signs the planet is sending us. Yet, there are those who believe it is not too late. Contemporary spiritual movements, many inspired by ancestral traditions, have sought ways to restore balance. From practices like global meditation to earth-healing rituals, these groups work to neutralize the negative energies generated by humanity. However, the question remains, are these actions enough to halt a process that is already underway? The overarching question is whether humanity still has time to change. According to the prophecies, Abaddon will only be fully unleashed if the imbalance continues to grow. But are we capable of reconnecting with the sacred and restoring harmony before it is too late? Since ancient times, the idea of a seal, protecting the physical world from the destructive forces of the abyss has been widely debated. But what exactly constitutes this seal? Is it something tangible, visible only to those with spiritual knowledge, or is it an energetic force that spans invisible planes? According to ancestral traditions, the seal is much more than a symbol. It is the manifestation of a delicate balance that depends on both spiritual forces and human actions to remain intact. In texts such as the Book of Enoch, we learn that fallen entities were imprisoned in lower dimensions by angels during the celestial rebellion. These texts describe the seal as something placed over the abyss by divine command, yet requiring constant maintenance, whether through spiritual practices or collective harmony on the planet. And here lies the great concern: the seal is not eternal. It weakens when the two elements that sustain it, the universal spiritual energy and humanity's collective energy, become unstable. But how can something so abstract weaken? The answer, according to esoteric traditions, lies in what they call cycles of spiritual decay. Cultures like the Mayans, Hindus, and even Australian Aboriginals believe that humanity lives through cycles of energetic ascent and decline. When these cycles reach a point of collapse, forces that were once contained begin to manifest. Many believe we are living through exactly such a period. This idea is reinforced by the increase in unexplained phenomena around the world, such as the subterranean sounds echoing in places like California and Turkey. Unlike what has already been discussed, these sounds may not merely be symptoms of a seal breaking, but also cries from imprisoned forces attempting to breach their barriers. In African cultures, for example, it is believed that sounds resembling echoes or thunder indicate a disturbance in spiritual portals located in caves or mountains. Practices aimed at keeping these portals closed are not restricted to Christianity. In Japan, for instance, there are Shinto shrines dedicated exclusively to containing negative energies, using amulets, prayers, and specific objects to protect the balance between the human world and the spiritual world. Interestingly, some of these practices have direct parallels with rituals performed by the Catholic Church, such as the use of sacred symbols and ritualistic languages. But what about the Seal of Aaden? If it is so central to the planet's balance, how has it been maintained for so long? According to occult scholars, the seal is composed of multiple layers: a physical barrier, represented by energetic sites such as mountains or caves, an energetic barrier, sustained by the Earth's vibrational flow, and a spiritual barrier, upheld by rituals and practices carried out over centuries. When one of these layers weakens, the seal as a whole begins to falter. Interestingly, there are records of religious and esoteric orders dedicating themselves for centuries to preserving this balance. Beyond the Vatican, other organizations like the Knights Templar and Hermetic societies played important roles. Historical accounts mention secret practices performed at specific locations, such as ruins in Europe and the Middle East, considered vulnerable to the influence of destructive forces. These practices often involve the use of relics, such as fragments of the True Cross or sacred manuscripts. A striking example comes from the Catholic Church itself, which throughout its history developed rituals such as the Rituale Romanum, widely used for exorcisms but also adapted to address spiritual disturbances in specific places. According to unconfirmed sources, versions of the ritual were used in locations such as Jerusalem and Rome to reinforce the seal against forces threatening to breach the portals of the abyss. However, as humanity has drifted away from its spiritual connection, the rituals that sustained these barriers have been neglected. With the decline of spiritual power and the rise of materialism, the layers of the seal have begun to destabilize. This raises a critical question. Does the Church, even with all its influence, still possess the tools to contain something as immense as the awakening of Aaden? Moreover, some suggest that the seal is not only weakening due to negligence but also due to sabotage. Theories propose that occult groups and modern movements, whether intentionally or not, have engaged in practices that disrupt the spiritual balance. Some of these groups, seeking power or knowledge, may be contributing to the weakening of the barriers that protect the world. What is clear is that the spiritual seal, though invisible, is a fundamental part of the planet's balance. If it truly gives way, the forces it holds confined would not only threaten humanity but also transform the very structure of our world. The pressing question remains: do we still have time to reinforce this seal, or are we already facing the inevitable? Since the earliest civilizations, humanity has always believed in forces that govern the balance of the world. Forces that, if disturbed, could trigger cataclysmic events. Among these forces, few are as feared and enigmatic as Aaden, the angel of the abyss. He is not merely a figure of destruction, but also a reminder of what happens when spiritual balance is broken. For many, his release symbolizes the ultimate breakdown of harmony between the planes of existence. But who is Abaddon, truly? In Christian traditions, he is described as the leader of destructive hosts, charged with bringing chaos to the end times. However, this description is only part of his nature. In esoteric texts, he is also seen as a guardian, a figure that does not act on his own will but is part of a greater mechanism of purification and renewal. He emerges only when the world reaches a critical point, where destruction is the only way to restore balance. But has humanity reached that point? The concept of Abaddon as a divine mechanism is intriguing. Unlike other destructive beings described in mythologies and religions, Abaddon is not inherently evil. He is a catalyst, an agent of transformation that comes into play when the seal protecting the abyss weakens. However, his awakening does not happen suddenly. According to the Prophetia Tenebris, Abaddon's release occurs in stages, each marked by global events that serve as warnings. These events include not only natural disasters but also profound changes in human behavior and the social structure of the planet. One of the most terrifying aspects of this narrative is the idea that Abaddon does not act alone. Ancient texts suggest that the abyss is inhabited by other destructive entities, many of which would be released before his arrival. These entities, described as shadows of chaos, might manifest subtly as negative energies fueling conflicts, diseases, and disasters. Are these phenomena already visible in our world? Another crucial point is humanity's role in this process. Abaddon, according to some interpretations, is not just an external force but also a reflection of human actions. Every act of violence, greed, or hatred contributes to the weakening of the seal that keeps him imprisoned. This raises a disturbing question. Is Abaddon's release inevitable, or could it be stopped if humanity changed its behavior? The notion of Abaddon as a reflection also appears in occult traditions, where he is seen as a representation of the inner chaos that exists within all of us. In times of imbalance, this chaos overflows, affecting not only individuals but also the collective energy field. If this is true, the key to preventing Abaddon's release may not lie in rituals or external practices, but in an internal transformation of humanity. Even so, some believe that Abaddon's release is already underway. Certain rituals, known as abyss-opening rituals, have been described in occult texts as ways to accelerate this process. These rituals, often performed by groups or individuals seeking power, involve energy manipulation, symbolic sacrifices, and the deliberate intent to break the barriers between the planes. Although rare and dangerous, these practices demonstrate that not everyone sees Abaddon's release as something to be avoided. Another intriguing aspect is Abaddon's relationship with the planet itself. Some spiritual traditions describe the Earth as a living being, capable of sensing and reacting to human actions. From this perspective, events like earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and storms would not just be signs of imbalance, but attempts by the Earth to protect itself against the release of destructive forces. However, these responses may not be enough to contain something as powerful as Abaddon. And what happens if the abyss is finally opened? Apocalyptic texts describe this event as a collapse of the barriers between the planes of existence, allowing forces from other dimensions to invade our world. This would not only alter the planet's spiritual structure but could also have physical consequences, such as changes to magnetic fields, extreme climatic disturbances, and even the deterioration of reality as we know it. Despite the gravity of the situation, many believe there is still hope. Containment rituals, such as those performed by the Vatican and other spiritual traditions, can slow the process. Moreover, humanity still has the ability to reverse some of the imbalance by reconnecting with spirituality and restoring harmony with the Earth. But are we willing to make these changes before it's too late? Abaddon, in the end, is more than just an entity or a threat. He is a reminder that everything in the universe is connected and that our actions have consequences far beyond what we can comprehend. The question that remains is, are we prepared to face the consequences of our imbalance, or will we resign ourselves to accept the collapse we helped create? Throughout history, humanity has sought balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. Yet, as we drift further from this connection and plunge into social, emotional, and environmental imbalances, it seems that forces long imprisoned are beginning to stir. Abaddon, the angel of the abyss, is both a reflection of our choices and an inevitable consequence of our disregard for universal balance. His release would not be merely an isolated event, but a turning point that could completely transform the world as we know it. While prophecies and signs point to an uncertain future, there is still hope. It is up to humanity to decide whether to rebuild its spiritual connection with the earth and restore the balance that has been broken, or to passively accept the consequences of its actions. In the end, the choice is not just global but also individual. What will we do, as individuals and as a species, in the face of an impending collapse? If you're interested in exploring more about spirituality, I've selected for you some videos filled with profound knowledge and fascinating discoveries that you'll love. Just click on one of them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual learning. Your commitment to knowledge is the first step in transforming your reality.